Hey guys, this is the host with a true survival story from my YouTube channel. This is a dramatic story that was sent to me by one of our subscribers, and it is a very good example of how important it can be to carry some basic survival gear like a knife. This story comes from someone in Turkey, and I believe I'm saying his name right. So sorry if I butcher any of these names, but hopefully I'm doing them right. All right, here's the story. I hope I do your country justice and your language. I did my best to translate it. Hello, everyone. My name is Mohammad Ali. I am an amateur nature photographer living in a small town near Istanbul. I am writing to you because I think that what happened to me could be a topic for your channel. On July 2020, at around 4 p.m., I went for a walk to a nearby mountain with my dog. After about half an hour, we reached the top of the mountain where there are cell phone towers. There are also stairs carved into the rock going down the mountain. On that day, the weather was extremely hot, and there were frequent thunderstorms in the area. I wanted to go down into the valley and take pictures of the clouds. Unfortunately, since it rains so much in the area after thunderstorms, the dirt road down the mountain was full of mud. Because of this, my car was stuck in the Ahmed, and I had no choice but to walk back home since it was 6 kilometers away. After walking for about 15 minutes, the sky got dark and I heard thunder. Moments later, a lightning struck very close to me and burned all the grass around me. I immediately realized that I needed to get out of the open field and hide under something. But unfortunately, there was nothing around me except trees. I remembered a place where there was a cave on the side of the mountain. I started running towards it while making sure not to get hit by another lightning. When I arrived at the cave, I saw that its entrance was blocked by rocks that had fallen from the roof. I looked around and saw a small hole above the entrance. I tried to crawl through the hole, but it wasn't big enough for me to fit through. However, since there was no other option left, I started removing rocks blocking the cave entrance so I could fit through the hole. I managed to remove the rocks and entered the cave. At that time, I didn't know that there were 2 entrances to the cave. When I turned on my flashlight, I noticed that the cave was dry and that it was used by people for shelter. Suddenly, the ground started shaking, and I felt the second man-made entrance collapse. The entrance behind me was now completely covered by rocks and dirt. I found myself trapped inside a tomb with no way out. I tried to calm myself down and thought about ways to get out of the situation. I checked the roof for a weak spot so I could dig myself out. After hitting the roof for a while with a rock, I finally found a spot that gave way. I enlarged the opening slowly, and after about 30 minutes, I managed to make it big enough to fit through. I crawled out of the cave and found myself in a forest. It was getting dark, so I lit a fire and stayed there for the night. I woke up in the morning and continued on my way home. In total, I spent 13 hours in the cave. I was lucky to survive and escape alive. The entrance that I dug out of the cave is still there, and anyone can use it. I want to tell you how important it is to carry a knife in such situations. I don't usually carry a knife with me, but since I wanted to cut some branches to burn them in the fire that night, I had taken my pocket knife with me. Since it was made of stainless steel, it was rusting a bit, so I took it out of my pocket and put it in my backpack to keep it dry. I couldn't remember this detail until the next morning when I emptied my backpack. If it weren't for my knife, I would have had a hard time escaping from the cave since I wouldn't have been able to cut the branches. I almost forgot that I had taken the knife with me that day. and I just realized that my knife saved my life. I learned a big lesson that day. You never know what might happen. So it's better to always be prepared. A simple pocket knife can save your life. When I told my friends about this adventure, they said that I should share my experience with people who love nature and hiking. That's why I contacted you. Thank you for listening to my story. That is an amazing story, and he has some great photos of the area that he shared with us too. And this is actually a fairly common occurrence in Turkey, where there's a lot of mountainous terrain. Now, if you look on Google Earth, you can see the two entrances to this tomb that this man was trapped in, and you can even see the hole that he dug out in the side of the roof. This is a really interesting story because there are many different aspects of survival that come into play here. The first thing that I want to talk about is luck. Our survivor was very lucky in this situation because he chose to take a pocket knife with him. He wasn't necessarily planning on needing it, but he took it anyway. In any survival situation, luck plays a huge factor. Sometimes you are simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, and sometimes everything goes your way. No matter how prepared you are for a survival situation, sometimes it's just luck that determines whether you live or die. Another thing that our survivor did well was keeping a level head. When he realized he was trapped, he didn't panic. He assessed the situation and started to come up with a plan to escape, and then he acted on that plan. He hit the roof of the cave until he found a weak spot, and then he expanded that weak spot until he could fit through it. Another thing that he did well was making a fire. Fire provides light and warmth, but more importantly, it provides a psychological boost. It gives you a sense of security and comfort, especially in a scary situation like being trapped in a cave. Now, there are some things that could have been done differently to increase the odds of survival. First of all, he should have known that there was only one entrance to this cave. He could have avoided the risk of getting trapped by taking the time to explore the entire cave and make sure that there were no other entrances that could collapse. If he had done that, he would have found the second entrance, and he would have been able to avoid the whole ordeal altogether. Also, he should have packed some food and water. Even though he was only in there for 13 hours, it would have been nice to have some sustenance. Lastly, he should have packed a headlamp. A headlamp is much more convenient than a flashlight because both of his hands were needed to remove the rocks. Now, is this a miracle? I don't think so. Survival is all about preparation meets opportunity, and this guy was prepared enough to survive this ordeal. The fact that he had a pocket knife with him is what allowed him to get out of the cave. Let's give him a hand. If you like this video, send us a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. Stay safe